morning, everybody. Dolores Keaveney here, and welcome to Wexford Library. I'm delighted that you are tuning in. I'm going to read my latest book called Dee the Bee, and it's all about pollination. And then when I'm finished that, I'm going to paint an apple tree, paint an apple, very simple with a very tricky little way of doing it. And I'm going to make an apple out of paper. So stay tuned. If I were a bee, I'd pollinate and play in the fruits, the herbs and veggies that we eat every day. I'd pollinate the apples, the peaches, the plums and the berries. The berries, all the berries you get in the hedges, you know, blackberries. At summertime. The limes, the lemons and the grapes, the pears, the rhubarbs and the cherries. The lovely red cherries that you can find. I'd pollinate the turnips, the pumpkins and the peppers, those hot things that Mammy uses when she's cooking. And we need pumpkins for Halloween. The chestnuts, leeks and onions, the radish and cucumber. We need the bee for all of those. I'd pollinate the Brussels sprouts, the cabbage and the celery. Lovely celery and cabbage and Brussels sprouts that we eat at Christmas. The nuts, the spices and the beans, the carrots and the broccoli, the carrots that all children eat, and broccoli. Broccoli is so good for you, but you wouldn't have it if you didn't have the bee. If I were out collecting food, I'd never make a sound. I'd pick up pollen on my feet, my legs, and I'd spread it all around the lovely flower on the fruit trees, apple trees and all those. When the pollen drops inside the flower, it mingles with the seed. And this is how you get the fruit. It's magical indeed. So now you see, it's down to me to pollinate all these. You won't have many fruits to eat if you haven't got the bees. And yes, it's me. My name is Dee. And I'm a little honey bee. And I just want to show you how they pollinate, what that means. And it's kind of a little verse here. Pollination, pollination, pollination. A very big word for consideration. So if you look down below in my book, read easy and slow, you'll get the full explanation. And the full explanation is this. When the bee goes out to collect pollen, it lands in on this flower and it collects up the pollen, and some of the pollen sticks to its leg. Then it flies off. And it lands on a different flower, the same kind of flower, like the flowers on the apple tree, the blossoms. And then the pollen from its leg falls into the center of this little flower and mingles with the seed. And suddenly a little apple grows. And so it is magical indeed. And if you want to encourage the bees into your garden, you can plant loads of different flowers. I have a few here, but there's lots of other ones. Delphiniums, clover, purple coneflower, poppies, dandelions. Do you know those little yellow weeds that grow in springtime and everybody loves pulling them and throwing them away? That's nearly the first food the bee flies to the dandelion, because it's absolutely full of pollen. And they need pollen in the spring to bring more food into the beehive to feed the babies, because they've eaten up all their stores and they love pollen from dandelions. Buddleia, lavender, vetch, foxgloves, bluebells, sunflowers and black-eyed Susies, other type of sunflowers. Sunflowers are amazing. They're a brilliant flower that you can sow. because there's loads of pollen at the front of the sunflower for the bees. And at the back of the book, there's a little note that says, what are your favorite fruits and vegetables? You'll probably find them in this book, and if you do, they depend on the hard work of the bee. So all the fruit and veg that's in this book, the bee pollinates. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll continue now to start our little workshop. And now, boys and girls, we're just going to start our demonstration on how to draw an apple tree, how to make a petal, an apple blossom, how to draw an apple, and then how to make an apple out of paper. So let's have a try at that. Now, I'm going to use a couple of colours, brown, green and pink. I'm going to use the cotton buds like this, wrapped together with an elastic band, and I'm going to use different colours and an ordinary paintbrush. You can use acrylic or you can use watercolours, whatever paints you like. So this is what I do when I'm drawing. I just, for the apple tree, I will just draw a line up like that. Some branches, brown, you can use brown, some branches up like this. Then I get a smaller brush and I will just do little branches like that. A few more thin little brushes like this. It's simple enough. And in springtime, lovely blossoms appear on the apple tree. So now we are going to put on, I'm going to put on some beautiful pink blossoms that I mixed up red and white to get the pink blossoms. And I use, I painted put some paint on the cotton buds, and you just go along like that, look. Is that not simple? Isn't that amazing? Get some more paint. And keep dabbing away until you get an apple tree with blossoms. Now, if you wanted to make it a little darker flower, you can just add a little bit more kind of red to it. It's like, you would like that. Dab away with your cotton buds. They make great tools for painting with, okay? Then I think we might add a tiny little bit of green, because there's usually green leaves on the apple tree. So what I will use is a bit of yellow and green mixed together to make a nice bright green. And you know how to mix yellow and green. And then come along, Same again with your cotton buds. Put a few here and here and here. Is that not a great way of making a painting of an apple tree in blossom? I think it is. I think I'll put a few more branches at the side like this, look. Little thin branches of the brown with a different thin little brush. And now I'm going to show you how to make an apple blossom. You just need pink and white, or red and white mixed together to make a nice pink. And this is a real simple way I do it. So you just have to do a petal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. And if you want to darken it up a little bit, you can just put in a little dot there, look. And then I usually put a tiny little bit of green into the center. Just like that. And maybe the tiniest little bit of red. Little dots. And there's your little petal. This is the little apple blossom that the bee flies in here to collect pollen to bring back to the babies in the beehive. It flies in there. It's after being on another blossom, the same type, and it has some pollen stuck to its legs, so it just flies in there, and the pollen from its legs drops into the center of this little flower, and lo and behold, it mingles with the seed of the flower, and suddenly an apple starts to grow. And that's how you get the apple. So if the bee didn't fly in there, you'd have no apples. And now I'm going to show you how I draw an apple. I just use red and this is how I do it, look. Just do a round circle. You can add a bit of water to it if you have watercolors, but not too much, just a bit like this. Just like this. Nice and straight, and you could add a little dash of green into it, because sometimes red apples have a little streak of green in it. That's really the way I draw it. I don't draw it any other way. Just like that. Then I get a very small little pen and I draw a branch like that. And I then paint a little green leaf or two at the top, because there's always a little leaf at the side of an apple tree on an apple, just like that, look. So that's how you draw an apple tree. There's your apple. there's your apple blossom, and there's your apple tree. And now I'm going to show you how to make paper apples. Just like that one there, you see that? This little paper apple. Very easy. Now to make the paper apple like this one, you will need 4 pieces of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Some glue. Pritt stick is probably better than what I'm using, but we'll go ahead and use this glue because I don't have any Pritt stick. So we fold those four pieces together just like that, and then you open them up, and then they have a little crease in them in the middle there. So you put down the first one, you put some glue on, then you get this one and you put this in the middle just like that, press it down, more glue, another red piece, and we put it sideways like that with a little mark in the middle. You see the little line, and more glue, and this one goes here. Now you press them down and wipe off any glue, any excess glue with a bit of tissue. And there you have your first part done. Now, the next part is you bring up one side like this, you put some glue on the top, just there at the edge, you bring up the other side and you stick it like that. Another little bit of glue, bring up another one, just like that. Keep your fingers tight on it. More glue. And make sure you hold it for a little while so that it sticks. Then we have 2 more to bring up. We will do a bit of glue. This one first. Press it down. Another drop of glue. This one. And we have just 2 more to do now. Do. And I suppose this is the trickiest part, to try and keep them together. And you just hold it down, give it a nice little squeeze, not too tight, just like this. And there you have it. Now it takes a little while to dry, so you might have to just maybe put something light on top of it just to keep it from coming up. So then you need 2 little leaves, green leaves. You just cut them out of your green paper. You press a little bend up on each of them like that. And you dab a little bit of glue on. 1, 2. And you put one on top of the other. And you just stick that to the top, just like that. And there you have your paper apple, and I think that's fantastic. So there's 3 paper apples, just like that. So there you have your little project. Your painted tree, apple tree, your blossom, your apples, and your paper apples. I hope you enjoyed that little workshop. I certainly did. And maybe you'll come back to see another one sometime. Have a great summer and do plenty of reading. Bye-bye now. Thank you for listening.